Good afternoon, everybody. So I am Dr. Vijayraja and I am going to present on the complete oxidation of glucose. So as a biochemist, every one of you know about glucose. So glucose is the ultimate source of energy, and today we are going to discuss how the glucose is getting completely oxidized and how it is producing ATP. So the aerobic respiration, in the presence of oxygen, the glucose inside a cell is getting burned and it is converted to pyruvate, and it is converted into acetyl-CoA, and then it enters into TCA cycle, and then it enters into electron transport chain. Thereby, all this series of metabolic cycles, it is producing 38 or 36 ATP molecules. So this is what we are going to discuss today. So aerobic respiration, it is a metabolic process in which the oxygen is used to burn the glucose, fat molecules, protein molecules to produce ATP. So this is one of the efficient way to generate ATP in a living cell. So this process involves various steps, right from the glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and electron transport chain. So during glycolysis, the glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate and a small amount of ATP and NADH. The pyruvate molecules then enter into the mitochondria and are further oxidized in the Krebs cycle, which produces more ATP and NADH and FADH2 molecules. Finally, the electron transport chain uses the electrons carried out by NADH and FADH2 to produce a large amount of ATP. This is what is happening actually inside every living cell. So this is the image. Here you can find the integration of various metabolic process right from the glycolysis to TCA cycle and to electron transport chain. So this is the pathways which is getting integrated, and the final goal is to produce ATP. So when the electrons produced from the NADH, FADH2, they are getting passed through various electron transport chain enzymes, complex 1 to complex 4. They generate a proton gradient across the membrane, which is used by the enzyme ATP synthetase to produce ATP. So this is the way the energy is generated by the breakdown of glucose through the glycolysis and the TCA cycle, which is ultimately transferred to the electron transport chain where it is used to produce ATP. So the whole process is tightly regulated to ensure the efficient production of ATP and the maintenance of cellular energy homeostasis. So this is the illustrative image of the integration of various pathways like glycolysis, TCA cycle, and electron transport chain. So the final important thing, the energetics of the entire complete oxidation of glucose. So you can see in the display, at the final you will get 36 to 38 ATP molecules. Here the important molecules are the electron transport chain, which accepts the NADH and FADH2. So these are the carriers of electrons. One NADH will produce approximately 3 ATP molecules, and one FADH2 will produce approximately 2 ATP molecules. So finally, right from the substrate ATP synthetase to through the electron gradients and the ATP synthesis, everything will finally give you 38 molecules of ATP. So this is what, if glucose is completely oxidized and it produces the end product of ATP as like the things we were discussed. So this is what happening in every living cell. So you have to understand one thing, the glucose is the ultimate fuel to produce energy, especially with the brain. So the glucose is present in the blood, which is absorbed from the intestine through the diet. What else? What are the things we are used to ingest? So this glucose is entering into the cell, and in the cytoplasm the glycolysis takes place, and in the mitochondria the TCA cycle and electron transport chain takes place. So you are having number of glucose transporters which transport the glucose from the plasma membrane into the cytoplasm. And here the insulin is having a very important role. It will promote the channel openings of glucose to get enter into the cytoplasm. So this is how the insulin is having a significant role to reduce the blood glucose, to make the glucose to get enter into the cell. So thus the glucose is the important molecule which produces ATP, and the complete oxidation of glucose will gives you 38 molecules of ATP. Hope you get it. Thanks for the patient listening, and in upcoming things we will see more on these topics. Thank you.